Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to the Craft of Farming panel discussion at NOFA New Hampshire's 20th Annual Winter Conference. I'm Nikki Kolb, NOFA New Hampshire's Operations Manager, and I'll be moderating this session with Laura Angers, NOFA New Hampshire's Program Coordinator. Thank you. First, please note that we are recording this session and all sessions throughout the conference, and we'll share the recordings with you at the end of the week. Everyone will be muted during our panel, so please type your questions into the chat box throughout the discussion, and either Laura or I will read them out at the end of the session when we get to the Q&A. NOFA New Hampshire aims to foster an inclusive, safe, open, and welcoming environment for all, and we encourage participants to keep questions and comments constructive. For technical issues, please feel free to communicate publicly through the chat or message Laura privately. And if you would like to access closed captioning, click on the CC icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen, click the arrow on the CC icon, and then click Show Subtitle. And if you're watching on a smaller screen, you can click the three buttons at the bottom of your Zoom screen that read More, and then click Show Subtitle option. And you can reach out to us through chat if you have questions about how to access the subtitles. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that this conference is taking place on the land of the Pennacook tribe, or Ndakina, the Abenaki word for the traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land and waterways and the Alnobak, or people, who have stewarded this land through the generations. Thank you. So what is CRAFT? If you're not familiar with it, CRAFT stands for Collaborative Regional Alliances for Farmer Training. It's a national program of small, independent regional alliances focused on training for farmers, farm workers, interns, and apprentices. NOFA New Hampshire's The Craft of Farming program is a farmer-led peer-to-peer educational network and farm tour series focused on best practices in organic farming. In 2021, we hosted 6 networking farm tour events around the state, and the program aims to bring farmers and farm workers together to meet new colleagues and learn new skills. Since 2019, our CRAFT program has hosted tours at 11 organic farms across the state, 15 tours in total. And now it's my pleasure to introduce some of our former CRAFT farmers: Aaron Lichtenberg of Winnipesaukee Woods Farm, Joanne Ducas of Mountain Heartbeet, Nico Kimberly of SHARA Vineyards, and Sarah Hansen of Kearsarge Gore Farm. And thank you so much for being here. And I'm hoping that each panelist can please introduce yourselves and answer our first question of our panel. What does your farm specialize in, and what was your farm tour topic or topics as part of the CRAFT program? And Aaron, if you'd like to start us off, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks. I appreciate you guys all having me. Thanks for acknowledging the lands on which we stand too. So I'm Aaron Lichtenberg. I've owned and operated our farm, Winnipesaukee Woods Farm, with my wife, Liz Lichtenberg, since 2012. We did a session on intensive growing in small spaces. And just a little quick backstory on that. We started our farm actually on a little over 2 acres, and in 2019 ended with running a CSA program with about 100 different members, going to farmers markets, all that stuff. And why this is relevant is because that year is the year which some land ownership changed for us, and some new landowners took possession of the land we were farming on, and we weren't able to come to agreement. So we had a really huge shift in our farming career. We went from that little over 2 acres of ground available to us to grow on down to 1 little 1/4 acre, which our high tunnel and current gardens now stand. So obviously, if you take that big of a shift in your farming business, some really hard decisions had to be made. And obviously that ended up focusing on high intensity, high density, high value crops. And so now we predominantly specialize in specialty cut flowers for weddings, special events, florists, and designers. And we also maintain our value-added goods program, which we now contract grow with a lot of other local farmers. That's the benefit of having operated for the last 10 years, is we've been able to find a lot of networking and a lot of really great relationships all over the state, but even mostly here in the Lakes region, where we get a lot of our produce for our value-added goods now. So I think I'll leave it there.
Thank you. And Joanne, would you like to share with us?
There we go. All right. So, yep, Joanne, Mountain Heartbeet Farm in Effingham on Pequawket land. My craft tour was leasing as well as small scale efficiencies and community partnership. It was a whole lot of topics because I do a whole lot of things. But the focus of the craft tour mostly revolved around the leasing structure that I've had for the last 7 seasons, leasing land on a larger farm and just kind of what that looks like for small scale growers and getting a beginning farmer business going with that community support. So that was the main focus, but similar to Aaron, I'm on a small footprint, but not down to 1/4 acre at this point, about 1.5 acres. So also pretty doing a lot of efficiency type work on the farm to produce as much food away as possible. And then I'm on the board of several nonprofits and working hard to connect farmers to each other and the community. So we talked about all those things.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And Nico?
Hey everyone, I'm Nico. I participated in 2 craft events. One was exploring what we do as organic grape growers in the state of New Hampshire. So that's my main farming focus, is growing grapes for making wine. And so the first was focused on the organic growing in New Hampshire, and the second was going a little bit more in depth about how to read landscape and how to understand your landscape when thinking about your plants, your vegetables or perennials or whatever you're growing. Ways to kind of deepen understanding of landscape to enhance your farming successes around many different things, but looking at air drainage and prevailing winds and water drainage on site and all sorts of other focuses like that. And I'm currently leasing close to 4 acres of planted vineyards in the state. That's spread out across a number of different parcels, and this year is a little different than in the past because I'm actually self-employed now, so working for my company NOK Vino, and got a few employees now working with me, helping to manage all those different vineyard plots. So yeah, there's some info for you.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you for sharing the updates on what you're doing since last season. And Sarah, would you like to share with us too?
Hey, my name is Sarah Hansen. Me and my partner, Sam Bauer, actually, I think he did both of the presentations. We work at Kearsarge Gore Farm in Warner. We predominantly do vegetables, organic vegetables, but also maple syrup, cordwood, and we raise lamb, beef, and pork. I've been working at the farm for about 10 years, but I was fortunate to come into a basically fully built farm. His parents, Bob and Jennifer, started the farm in the early 80s and have been creating all the infrastructure and getting the whole thing together. So our 2 talks focused on soil health practices. So, coming into a plot of land, but what can we do to improve the soil? We focused a little bit on no-till or low-till, and Sam co-hosted that with Julie Davinson of Stonewall Farm. And then our second talk was 4-season farming. We don't really take a break. We get some vacations, but we talked about what it's like to have a little bit of farming to do or a whole lot in every season, and what that looks like in a cold weather climate.
Thank you. That's great. And I should add too, which I didn't in my earlier discussion of what the program is. In 2020, we hosted the craft tours virtually. And so both Nico and Sarah participated in in some filming tours that were then screened in 2020, and the other 2 years, 2021 and 2019, we were able to host tours in person, which was great. So we had a bit of a blending of methods of sharing what's going on the farms. So thank you all. And the next question that I have for you is, how does learning from and connecting with your peers help you and your farm business? And if we want to go in the same round robin, I think that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Well, connecting with your peers is always a benefit, and I'm sure I'm not saying anything new here that any of the other fellow farmers on the call today would say. But just quite simply, the opportunity to connect with anybody in our world when we're oftentimes just hunkered down in our little silo that is our farming operations, you know, for the growing season that just always takes hold of all of your energy and time. Having an opportunity like this to kind of get you out of that silo, open up and have that opportunity to connect with people, to learn from the smallest little tidbit that you can grab. There's always just this one little thing to really more massive things when you're able to mix it up out there with other growers. Particularly if you're talking with another grower from another discipline, you know, it's just surprising how many different cross-utilized techniques and skills you can learn from your peers. So yeah, that's what it is for me.
I really love getting to see other people's farms. Before I started my own, I went on a farm tour. I went and I visited like, I don't know, over 13 different farms throughout Maine and New Hampshire, just to like check out what other people pick up. One person's wash station tip here, and you pick up this person's, you know, whatever tip about lettuce growing over here, and then this person's growing tomatoes with the Florida weed, and this person's doing it with another thing, and what issues are there, what's your landscape, what are your soils like. So for me, being a farmer, it's really physical, it's very visual. You know, books and this and that, but actually seeing someone's farm and seeing how they're doing it instead of reading this like idyllic thing that may or may not be true or just sounded good in a book is way better. And you get to ask the questions you want to ask, and you can't do that on a book, and you can't do that in most conferences unless you really get down at that farmer. And then the other thing I love is just getting to meet other farmers. That's how I've gotten a lot of collaborative relationships. You know, Aaron and I met at a farm conference, I think, and Nico and I just met at a farmer gathering. So you find your people. So you can't really go wrong when you go to a farm.
Yeah, I'll go next. So I think of course, echoing what other folks have said so far, the importance of connection and community is really important, not just for the transfer of knowledge, but also I think for this mental health thing that's out there. You know, being connected to others is a positive thing and gives you a feeling of you're not all alone. And I think sometimes that feeling can come about as a farmer because there's so much work to be done and you do get a bit of tunnel vision. So I think that I like the connection with people, and the excitement that other people have about different types of farming is kind of contagious for me. But I think also we're in a time of changing climate, and the more farmers we can talk to and share information about how they're observing and adapting their practices to weather and climate shifts, I think is really important. And that's only going to become more important over time, especially when we check in with farmers from different parts of the state and hear different things they have to say. It really brings context to your own farm and understanding where you are. And so I think that there's that element of, really how do we adapt as farmers to a changing climate and also to a changing economic equation for us in a time when the pandemic is still going on, and that changes our economic focus. You know, how can we collaborate with other farmers to say, like, how are you solving this problem? So I think that that's part of it for me as well.
I want to echo what Joanne says about the book learning. I'm such a book person, and you know, everybody's got a library this thick of books. Oh, and they're so good, especially like in January, February time, and everything's so idyllic and amazing. And you're like, oh, that so works, and I'm so excited to do that on my farm this year. Then you kind of get to it, and you're like, that sounds exhausting. I think that I've learned a lot. You know, probably in the same time period that we've been doing this craft program, not just from the farmers in this series, but from other friends, going to farms and seeing how people are learning about their land and making specific recommendation, or, you know, implementing certain things for their own farm. Everybody's soil type is different. Everybody's time is different. And I think there's so many little things that we can learn from each other, you know, whether it's like, whether I go to Nico's vineyard and see how he's, you know, pruning his grapes, and that gives me another layer to even how I interact with some of the things that we're growing on our farm, and how people are working with water. And, or I see, you know, Aaron's got all of his value added stuff, and then I'm like, that's a great idea. I wonder if I could like build that into my long-term plan for my farm. So, you know, it's ideas and it's sharing everything that everybody said. And then the one thing that I'll add, and maybe this is a little bit, I don't know, I think talking to other farmers also gets me, it allows me to see cool things that we're doing that I think I take for granted sometimes. Like Nico said, like if somebody comes to the farm and gets stoked on what I'm doing, it shows me that those things are cool, that they're worth talking about to other people too. This thing that I get hung up on a lot is like talking to even customers or people about like the nitty gritty of what we're doing. But the more I talk to people about the nitty gritty, the more I think that they understand what we're actually doing. And I think that we can share a lot as farmers, but I think when we talk to each other, we're also learning how to talk to people who don't do this on a day-to-day basis.
That's great. Thank you all so much for your thoughtful responses. And I think you all really shared some great insights about the program and just connecting and sharing your work with each other. Thank you. And we have another question for you. And that is, and you might have answered this a little bit in the last question, but if you have more to add, we welcome you to. How does and can the craft program build a stronger cooperative organic farming community in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I really like those comments from my fellow panelists. You guys expanded into every corner, I think, on what does make these connections so robust and valuable to us. And I guess I would just kind of expand on this next iteration of kind of maybe a similar question to say that, I mean, obviously the more we connect with one another, the better and stronger we're going to be. I mean, we're a social species anyway, so we need to do that from a biological level. But when we do this over this topic, the more and more we do it, like was mentioned before, it goes a little bit beyond just that information exchange. So there is that resilience, like, you know, Nico and Sarah were kind of, I think, pointing out as well. You know, and it can benefit from just a phone a friend, you know, later on at another time. I mean, Joanne will certainly say or share how many times I've called her up and just had a random question to ask, and she's always readily there to answer it for me. To bigger asks, you know, like when, I'm sure the other farmers would say the same thing, when they get that phone call from another farmer that they've connected with, I don't care whether it's pulling plastic on a tunnel or, you know, oh shit, I need some help in my orchard. It doesn't matter. Like that other farmer just drops whatever the hell they're doing and they go and help. It's because we understand it. And those connections are what makes us stronger to do it. The little different thing that I noticed about our craft tour this year, was our only year doing it so far, but what was fun for us was to see some of our customers show up at the farm, at the tour. So, I mean, I didn't really see that coming. And so even beyond just the farmer to farmer connections that can be made, for me to have one of my florists that I've been selling to all year show up in August and see the fields and see where that stuff comes from. I mean, it's kind of like what Sarah was saying about these other connections we end up having. It's not just a source of pride in showing what you're doing, but it's like that pulling back that curtain that has so many layers of a function to be able to do that. So like I said, I didn't see that coming with our tour, and that was really fun to have a customer come. And I think, yeah, I don't know, it was fun. So I'll leave it there.
Piggybacking on what Erin just said, yes, customers that might be buying your product, like at that level, like a florist, but just getting people on farms and seeing how food grows and seeing how flowers grow and seeing how animals are treated. I feel like that's a really, I don't know, it's like, maybe it's not fashionable, maybe it never will be, but people are trying to really get education out about CAFOs and the dairy industry. It's all well and good to watch The Biggest Little Farm or whatever, but like that's in California and we're in New Hampshire. And so getting people to come to your New Hampshire farm and see how we're doing it here in a 4-season climate, with all the things that happen here, it's really powerful to engage with the community and with homesteaders and with interested farmers that want to like see what the heck you can even do. It's exciting, I think, to get all of those people in one place and actually talk, because you meet them at the farmers market, you have like a 5-minute exchange if you're lucky and you don't have a line. But other than that, it's just like we say, know your farmer. Like, come know your farmer. Come to the farm, and get to see what we're doing. We're promoting that so strongly, to know your farmer. So we need to have these opportunities to see and to know, like actually, not just the, your facade at the farmer's market or on Instagram. Like, we're real people too. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I'll second what everyone's already said. I think that when I was preparing to answer this question, the first thing that came to my mind a few days ago was how surprised I was to see mostly members of the public or folks who are gardeners, but maybe not farming full-time, attend the tour, the in-person tour this year. And how neat that was for some of those folks to be from the farmers market that I had met there, and feeling like craft was kind of extending this platform to deepen non-farmers and farmers level of knowledge about what farming looks like in New Hampshire. And that's super important. So I think that's probably the main thing that I'll echo here. I think a kind of a follow-up from that tour this year was I had one of the people reach out to me asking about, can I plant some grapes in my backyard and how would I do that? And that was pretty neat to hear about too, to see kind of like what Sarah was saying, that the work we're doing is important because it can inspire other people to even try, maybe planting a few vegetables or perennial plants. And then they have a farmer they can ask for questions. They're more likely to succeed than if they're just reading something online about how to start a garden. And so I think that personal connection and the support we can give to even non-farmer, full-time farmers, is actually really valuable for the community and for the state, and I think makes everyone more successful. So
when I was thinking about how to answer this question, peers to me didn't mean customers, it meant farmers. So I guess my answers are going to be based on that. There's two things that I think are really important to me. So as I said before, I came into basically a fully functioning farm. I didn't start anything like many of you have from the ground up. And I haven't been doing this my whole life. I've been doing it for about 10 years. And so part of what I have really valued about learning from my peers has been this intergenerational kind of learning. There's Sam's parents, Bob and Jennifer, have been doing this for decades and have a million ways of, or not a million ways, they have a way that they do things, and it's been working and it's amazing. And so I was very lucky to have learned that system and been able to add and contribute to the system that they have. In the past couple of years, it's been amazing to connect with my peers and kind of explore these different avenues that are like, okay, this is still like the main goal of the farm, but how can I adapt some of these things to the system that we already have to achieve the same goals? One of those things is that I'm looking forward to experimenting with, probably not anytime soon, but is scale, like scalable size. How much time can we devote to what we're doing? Is all of this, do we need to be doing as much as we're doing to make these goals work? And I think that connecting with my peers on those 2 points, like generational learning, so like having this whole spectrum from like people who just started farming, people who have been doing it for a couple decades, has been really important to teach me about how I would like to shape my own farm business in the future, or additionally add to the one that I'm already a part of.
Thank you all for your really helpful and diverse answers. I think it's great to hear your perspectives about building on our community and how the program has helped you expand your community and what you're doing and think in new ways and answer questions. That's what we definitely want to have happen through this program. And I think, so we have one more question, and then we're happy to open it up to questions from everyone who's in attendance. So we know that during the growing season, it can be hard for farmers to attend each other's farm tours. So our question is, if your schedule allowed you to attend another farm's tour, what topics would you like to see? And what would be most valuable to you? And if you've already seen a topic that you thought was great and would want to see that again, you can answer with that too.
Yeah, sure. Well, the thing that Sarah just shared about scale, I personally think that's a huge issue for any of us at all that are trying to run a business, period, let alone a farm business. I think that's a huge topic, but I'm not going to steal Sarah's thunder on that one. I will selfishly say that, as I lead it on to, I'm a flower grower now. I was not a flower grower. We grew flowers always as some part of the business, but never so intensively and deliberately and as the farming business. So I'm a veg guy by heart. I like food. Flowers, you can't stack them and you can't eat them, really. So anyway, putting that aside, I will still say that flowers are hard. It makes vegetables look easy, like cakewalk. Cauliflower doesn't even intimidate me anymore. It's just like, bring it on. So I would selfishly like to see more cut flower topics, just like I said, quite selfishly, because it's very challenging. I'm still figuring out what the hell I'm doing with it, figuring out how to, come up with better germination systems and better ways to do what it takes to do intensive specialty cut flowers. And like I said, they're really challenging. So I'd love to see more of that personally. It's always helpful to see other people's systems, like I said before earlier, learning other growing systems and how people do things. It's just always, you just can't replace it.
Aaron, I'm going to call you after about cauliflower. Yeah, so, oh boy, whoop, just where'd it go? Oh yeah, okay. So one thought that I have that could be done more in a shoulder or off season, obviously if I can go in the summer, I will, but is a little bit of some more of the, I know there's like larger workshops on financial planning, but I think that there is a space for talking to farmers about ways to invest and to plan for retirement, maybe. How do we do this? It's something that after, farming for 7 or 8 years, I'm just kind of like, okay, like what am I, how do I do that? So there could be some usefulness in getting farmers together to talk about, like, what are you doing? Do you have an IRA? Do you have a plan? Are you just going to sell the farm and hope to live off that? Because that doesn't feel sustainable to me. If your only asset is your land that no one else is going to value the way you value, how do you live once your body decides it's totally done with lifting 80 pounds every day, all day, and squatting all day, and farming and wrestling pigs and cattle and all the things that you do, which we love to do, but are hard on your body. So there's got to be someone's got to have come up with something better than what I'm doing. Greenhouse session to me. And then Nico had touched on climate change, and I think it could be really interesting to focus some conversations around climate change, how farmers are thinking about it, how they're planning for it, and also just some alternative energy stuff. Should I just buy a propane thing for my greenhouse? Should I be looking at other options? So farmers that are really maybe on that edge of seeing the writing on the wall and acting on it, and maybe I'm still a little hesitant. So I'd love to see what farmers are doing to think about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo what Erin said about cut flowers and kind of expand that out. I mean, I'm interested in learning more about cut flowers as well, because a vineyard is generally a monoculture, although the way that I farm it tries to bring a lot more ecological diversity into it. As I think about other things that I'd love to have at a farmer's market stand, I'd love to be able to sell flowers or things that can be integrated into the vineyard ecosystem that I'm already managing. And so I guess my answer to, what would I like to see more of is maybe a more sustained discussion that rolls in, how do we create diversified farms between annual and perennial production systems in this state? How do we work with across farms maybe to say, well, you've got the right land to grow this, but maybe you don't have the labor. So what kind of cooperative system might we build that, I can use my labor to work on your land and to grow the crop that I really want to grow, but you don't want to or don't have time? How do we build diversified systems that are cooperative, that are adaptable to climate change? And how do we do that right here in New Hampshire with the farms and the land and the knowledge that we already have? I think that discussion is talked about like really high level a lot. And I would love to see that as being an ongoing discussion with us in real time, in real life here in the state. And I love the idea of the financial planning too. I think that would be really neat to talk more about, and especially succession planning. Like, can you sell the farm to someone who wants to be a farmer next? That's the question that I don't know if there's really an answer right now, at least in this state. So I think that, yeah, these kind of like holistic solutions and integrated solutions, that would be my desire to see more focus on going forward.
I don't know where I want to go to all of these, so I'm going to have to make some time for these future workshops. One that climate change, all aspects. Like I've been following this Dry Farming Institute out in Oregon, and they're cultivating seeds for drought resiliency. But last year was really wet, so where's the wet farming? What are the tools? What tools can we gain to help what we're growing be resilient against what's coming? And how can we grow differently to help mitigate what's coming to a lot of the carbon sequestration, that kind of thing? What can we be doing on our farm to mitigate climate change, even at the scale that we're at? Joanna mentioned whether to buy the propane heater. So going to a place like our farm is off grid, the farmhouse is off grid, but Lord, do we use a lot of gas to keep, different things going. We're not totally where we want to be with energy resiliency that I think is going to be necessary in the very, very short term future if it's not already here. Winter growing. I don't know if I want to add that onto my plate, but it's always something that I struggle with a lot. I went to a UVM seminar a couple of years ago about winter growing way up north in Vermont, and I was like, what are they doing? But I haven't been to one in New Hampshire, and I know that we have some phenomenal winter growers, and I would love to just see a different scale. I think there's so much that we can learn from these protected plantings that we all have in the high tunnels. How can we be utilizing those year round if we have the time? And the last thing, I don't know if this is super craft, but kind of also going on what Joanne said about movement and our bodies and taking care of our bodies. What are people doing? Are people like committing themselves to, stretching at lunch, or what, could just be like, hey, here's like a quick handful of things that you can take back to your crew or use in the middle of your day to maintain some flexibility and resiliency. As we do these, our job is so full of manual labor. It's crazy. It's picking stuff up and putting it down all the time. And how do we take care of ourselves in that way? So those are my three things that I would also attend if I had time.
Thank you all so much. Those topics sound really rich. I wrote them all down, and we will think about them as we're crafting the next craft program for 2022. And I actually do have some details about that I could share now, or I could share at the end of our discussion. I did see in here that Don Ford, who also is a member of the Craft Network, and did a craft tour with Steve Ford in 2020. Don mentioned that Allison from Spring Ledge Farm gave a cut flower workshop in the past at a winter conference. That's really helpful. Thank you. As we're thinking about future topics. Does anyone have a question right now in the chat, or would it be helpful if I shared what we're planning for this year for craft first before we take some questions? Maybe if anyone wants to raise their hand or something.
No questions at the moment.
Okay. Well, I'll share about 2022, what's in store. So this year we're planning to host another 6 in-person farm tours during the growing season. And we're adding a couple of new things. So 4 webinars focused on topics such as entering new markets, fair labor, land succession, and transitioning to organic for folks who do want to start that process. And we're going to be planning to split those over the spring and winter months, which will hopefully be a little bit slower for folks. And they'll also be recorded. So all of our members of the Craft Network from previous years can access those if you're not able to attend in person. And we're also aiming to continue to foster this craft network of farmers by hosting a few virtual meetings throughout the year. We started that last year for farmers to connect and share struggles and wins and learn from each other. And so if you are a farmer interested in hosting a farm tour this year, please do reach out to me, and I'll put my email in the chat if you haven't connected with me before. Those are some of the things we have planned, and I really love all the topics that you all shared, and we'll consider those for sure as we're planning the tours. Do we have any questions from anyone or any comments? If there's folks who want to either unmute or put comments or questions in the chat.
And I just changed the settings so anyone can unmute if they'd prefer to ask aloud.
Thank you.
Nikki, I had something.
Great, thanks, Kate.
Kate from Stout Oak Farm. I used to be part of the Eastern Mass Craft group, and they do an annual variety review, a vegetable farm focused variety review. And it's a really fun annual event. And it's pretty simple. But what comes out of it is this amazing report. It's basically all the recommended varieties that have done well or not done well, kind of like a cheat sheet that other farmers can use and pass along. So I just thought that might be an interesting topic. That would also be a little bit more of an off season in terms of the timing, but we were thinking about organizing something like that this winter and realized it was happening. We kind of came up with the idea too late just to do with some of our farmer friends, but it struck me that it might be a topic that Craft might be interested in, and maybe it would be like a November, December thing, like well in advance of when we're actually ordering seeds.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And Joan, do you have a question? I see your hands raised.
It's not a question, it's a statement. I attended Aaron and his wife's workshop this summer, and I just want to encourage people to drag your friends to these tours, because that couple did a beautiful job with the presentation. Like, they had a raffle for us. They had a big bouquet of flowers and that she put together and raffle. So they were really good host and hostesses too. So I encourage people and also to meet their customers and to hear their reactions too. So, the more we can get outsiders to come to these craft tours, the better. Drag your friends to these things, because they're a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Go ahead, Emma. Do you have something?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you. I feel like farmers have tapped into the ability to barter and trade more than maybe the general public has, and I think that is kind of, if there's going to be economic revolution, it'll start on that level, or maybe just individually. So I guess my question is, as farmers who kind of naturally are into that world, do you have any advice for the general public on how to kind of transform how they buy and sell and trade, and how they operate in that way?
It's a great question for our panelists. You can just chime in, whoever wants to respond.
Emma, I don't know if this is exactly what you're looking for, but I feel like it just never hurts to ask. Like, I barter for a lot of my healthcare. So like my chiropractor eats vegetables, and that's how I pay for things. And so I think there's this fear that someone might not be into it. But just put yourself out there and ask. If you have vegetables, if you have flowers, if you have protein. My partner barters our pig products for things all the time. I think we've probably paid Aaron in some amount of pork for helping with greenhouse tasks. And, I think that there's some amount of tracking that we do sometimes. And then I think there's also just this level of comfort you get with people that you start to really know and trust, that free flowing, as Robin Wall Kimmer would say, the gift culture, right? So here we are, I'm going to gift Aaron this pork, and then he's going to gift me back a day helping me with the greenhouse. And I can put a number to it, or we can just trust. And my chiropractor is the same way. She's like, I don't care if I get $40 of vegetables. This is what I do. to support the farming community and you. And I get real whacked out. I'm like, it's exactly 40 every time. And then I just like, I'm letting it go. Like, she's cool with it. I'm cool with it. You know, I've traded for massages. So yeah, Sarah, some of that self-care stuff, you know, trading for yoga, trading for whatever. Everybody eats and loves beautiful things. So yeah, I'm not like revolutionizing my economy, but I do just ask. And usually people are psyched. So I just encourage that. Just don't report it to the IRS.
We run a small store in our town, and I've always thought it would be cool to have, you know, there's little hubs in every place. And I don't know if this is directly speaking to your question either, but some kind of like time bartering thing, or like where Joanne was like, hey, you know, I have this to trade. And then I don't know if this is super revolutionary, but you'd go down the list and be like, oh, I need an electrician who's willing to trade for vegetables or something like that. Or like a little, it's almost like a community help wanted board that is just a specific barter board. And then it kind of, I don't know if people would be into it, but it like formalizes that kind of like trading scenario. So it maybe doesn't feel as awkward, because I am not that person that just asks. Not that I'm like, whenever I see somebody do that, I say, oh, you're much braver than I am. Like, yes, I live in this economy and I'll just trade you this cold hard cash for whatever you need. But it'd be cool. Or, you know, a quick example. I've always wanted a sauna, and I'm like, well, I don't know how to build a sauna, you know, but I would go to somebody's land and help them build a sauna, and then they could come to my place and help me build a sauna, you know. I don't know, something like not even just as equal as that, but maybe institutionalizing and formalizing. It's, what is it called, like mutual aid in a little bit, kind of like that. So yeah, I wonder if you, it's just skirt around the economy by formalizing something different. I like that question though. I'm into this question. I want to think about that for a little while. Yeah.
Thank you. Emma, was that helpful to your question, I hope?
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Yeah.
That's great. And then, yes, we do have a couple of comments here. So Linda says, community education is so important. I've hosted many farm tours in the past at schools, to schools, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, etc. So yeah, bringing on different folks to the farm is really helpful. And Dawn, to your question, Emma said there's also sharing of farm equipment. So there's organizations, of course, that do that too, like the Small Beginning Farmers of New Hampshire has equipment sharing as well. And I see that Ellen, you have your hand up. Would you like to ask a question and come off mute?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm on a walk in the beautiful sunny day in what I would like to refer to as the belly of the beast in suburbia in Massachusetts. And you know, and I'm hearing this wonderful, rich conversation about bartering and those kinds of economies that I lived amongst for many years in New Hampshire. And, you know, trying to bring that into suburbia is a really interesting thing where money is a big focus versus value. And I think the more that we can talk about value, like, you know, like the farmer was saying, you know, we do a lot. I run a food security situation and resiliency gardens since COVID started. And I actually like it when we get in-kind donations better than when we get financial donations. And, you know, some of our farmers, it's really interesting because like the big stores that, you know, have to be a 501c3, we need this, we need this, we need that. Whereas our local farmers are like, good karma, want you to get food. We can't pack it up. We can't deliver it. You can do that. This is a win-win. You know, so I just hope that some of the food security work is included in this conversation as well, because I think it's really important. And maybe a barter in that world also can be part of things. And I'm just going to echo what folks were saying about winter gardening courses, winter farming, excuse me. I use the term gardening because that's what I run as a gardening program. But I think that would be really wonderful. And that's the kind of thing that you could bring people who are not farmers, but gardeners to the table with. So I just love what y'all are talking about, and thank you. And if y'all want to comment on anything I said, that's fine, or you could just let it be.
Thank you, Ellen. I have a comment to what you said, and I think probably everyone on the call is aware of this, but I think that the gleaning services are another great opportunity that is offered through many different organizations in our state. New Hampshire Cleans, and then also some of the conservation districts do that as well. So it's really helpful with for food security, and I think it's a helpful service that many of the farmers on the call, I think, participate in. I know that some of you do. And Linda, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, I am really in awe of all of you, for doing the work that you're doing. I have lived on a dairy farm for over 50 years. I lived on a farm that was established. It was my husband's family farm, and he passed away a few years ago. But in the past, I have tried to do a lot of these same things, but it was just me. And I was the one who said, I've hosted many farm tours. I was a teacher for quite a few years. I'm retired now. And they need that education. They need to see what farmers do. They need to see where their food comes from, how it's produced. And so anytime that you can do something like that, and I think this is a great way to do it, I think it's so important. If you've ever gone to any county fairs or anything and found out that, some of the misinformation that is out there about farms, I think it's really important for people to come to understand where their food comes from. You're doing a great job. Thank you all.
Thank you, Linda. I don't know if and I don't want to call you out, Steve, but as a craft farmer too, do you have any comments that you would like to share about the program? And if not, it's okay. Seems to unmute.
Sorry. So we did our craft tour when it was only virtual. So we kind of missed out on the real interaction with other farmers other than, through Zoom. And we have stayed in contact with a few of them. I mean, the program, I think the program is great in that regard. We've made some connections with a few folks, and that's helped us. We're both vegetable and poultry farm. And one of the things that's challenging for us is we don't particularly organic poultry or organic meats. It's hard to find other farms that are kind of doing that. So if anybody knows anybody and wants to connect that way, we'd love to do that. Yeah, I guess that's probably the only. I love everything that today's panelists have shared. It's really, really great.
Hey, Steve, you forgot to thank your wife, who's your other right hand.
She got more acknowledgement earlier, I think, from Nikki.
Yes, thank you both for being part of the craft program in 2020. And again, we look at craft as a network. If you participated one year you're part of the craft network, and we want to continue to grow the connection between farmers across the state. We started the craft program in just Merrimack County with trying to make sure that the farm tours were close to each other so people could more easily go to each other's farms. And we've used that strategy, and we've also started to expand it more across the state so that there's more ability for others to attend, farmers in different counties across the state, as well as your customers or people who are homesteading and just want to learn, as many of the panelists have mentioned, about exactly who these farmers are, who we've met at the farmers market, had interactions with, who's my CSA farmer. And it's a great opportunity for bringing in, I guess, multiple stakeholders would kind of be the way to say that in one event. And I really enjoy this program and working with all of you and getting a chance to go to your farms. And I think everyone else does too. And I see a comment here from Paul that I'm going to check out. And Paul says, I'm glad to hear and learn more about the facets of this project. I feel the connection as a grower and also wonder how I can best network as a company rep. Yeah, that's helpful. Paul's from High Mowing Seeds. So if anyone does want to reach out to Paul at any time, you can let us know, and potentially we can help make a connection for you, if that's okay with Paul. Yeah, so does anyone else have anything to say? Joanne, looks like you went off mute.
Oh, I was just going to say, if Kate pulls off the variety review, maybe Paul would want to attend. I know he does a lot of that variety work with his growers. So that could be a fun collaboration potentially. So yeah.
Yes. Well, I want to thank everyone again, unless there's any lasting comments or a final question. I know we're almost at time here, so I'll just I'll hold up for one more second, see if I see any raised hands or anyone in the chat. Here we go. Aaron's raising his hand.
Well, I just can't help myself, only because Emma brought it up. So this is for the group, but for Emma specifically, if you're interested in the topic of barter, I sincerely recommend the book called Debt by David Graeber. And again, it's called Debt, the First 5,000 Years. And I would also like to echo what Joanne said, just don't hesitate to start asking, because unless you ask, the answer is always no. So again, that was Debt by David Graeber, First 5,000 Years.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see tours. Yeah, I'd like to see some tours with some older farmers before they die and retire. So, target some of those sage old farmers, that maybe never did a farm tour, and they're ready, and it's like they want to brag about what they've accomplished. So get those old people in there. Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful. It's a great addition. And as I mentioned, I wrote down all of your ideas, and if anyone has any ideas or just wants to reach out in general about the farm, about the craft tour with questions, I put my email in the chat. You can contact me anytime. And I guess this concludes our session. It's almost 1 o'clock. I want to thank our panelists so much again, Aaron, Joanne, Nico, and Sarah. Thank you for your time and for sharing your knowledge with us and for being with us today. And all of you as well for hanging out with us on this really nice, beautiful sunny Friday. Hope we get to go outside now. And we also do hope that you'll attend our session this evening, Friday night. How can New Hampshire scale up food production quickly? And that's a Northeast Food Security panel, and it's at 7 p.m. And I think Laura's putting the workshop links in the chat. Thank you. And if you have not yet, please check out our virtual exhibitor fair for the conference. And that's featuring 17 different exhibitors, including our conference bookstore hosted by Main Street Bookends. When you order any books through Main Street Bookends and include NOFA-NH in the comments, 20% of proceeds are donated back to our organization. And that can be books from our conference book list or just any book in general. And also please mark your calendars for some upcoming and in progress events that we have. NOFA New Hampshire is hosting a Farm Bill listening session on February 17th. That's next Thursday at noon. So that's to learn about priorities for the 2023 Farm Bill. If you'd like to let us know what you'd like to see. We're also hosting our Feeding the Family Organic Gardening Series, 6 sessions from February 22nd to May 3rd, and those are online with 6 different educators. Our bulk order is also happening right now. You can save on farming and gardening supplies, and the order deadline is February 28th, with pickups on March 19th and 20th in Andover, New Hampshire, Ware, and Rochester. And thank you so much again for joining us. Great to see you all.